What if the fearless Vikings, those iron-souled sailors of the north, set out across the Atlantic without ever lighting a single fire aboard their ships? No glowing embers, no hearth to gather around, only cold wind and the endless roar of the sea. It sounds impossible, but that's exactly what they did. Imagine standing on the open deck of a Viking longship. No walls, no shelter, just a world of ice-cold air and angry water. Waves rise higher than houses. Slamming into the bow, salt spray freezes on your beard, turning it into brittle glass. The wind cuts like a blade, and even your breath turns to frost. Before it hits the deck, it's the year 1000 CE. Somewhere between Norway and Greenland, a crew of 20-odd men pushes through a storm. There's no cabin to crawl into, no stove to warm your hands. And yet they endure. They don't merely survive, they thrive. They cross the same freezing seas that would cripple modern sailors, even with heated cabins and waterproof gear. So how did they do it? How did men inside open wooden boats conquer the North Atlantic without fire? Archaeologists have excavated dozens of Viking ships from the Gokstad and Osloberg burials in Norway to fragments preserved in fjord mud and peat. The pattern is the same. No trace of hearths, fire pits, or metal braziers that could have been used at sea. Not one, and once you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Those ships were built from tarred oak and pine, sealed with animal fat and pitch, and rigged with wool sails soaked in oil. Every rope, every plank, every nail seam was flammable. A single spark would have turned the ship into a floating torch in the middle of the ocean. That meant instant death. The Vikings understood this better than anyone. They didn't fear the cold as much as they feared fire, so they made a radical choice. No flames at sea ever. Instead, they built a system, an entire culture of endurance around that restriction. If you can't heat the ship, you heat the body. That was the Viking solution. Their clothing wasn't primitive fur and rags. It was engineered protection. They wore layers of wool spun at different densities, coarse for the outer shell to repel water, and fine and soft underneath for insulation. Between those layers, trapped air created warmth. Wool, even when wet, still insulates an ancient miracle material. Over that came hides, reindeer, seal, bear, anything that sealed against wind. Their boots were lined with grass, for both cushioning and moisture absorption. Even their sleeves and collars were tied off with cord or waxed thread every morning, locking in warmth the way modern explorers use neoprene seals. Each sailor was his own furnace, and together they became the ship's only source of heat. When modern mariners complain of cold inside metal holes with diesel heaters, remember the Vikings wrapped in hand-spun wool, braced against the gale, keeping warm through sheer design and discipline. At night, when the ship stopped or anchored in calmer waters, they didn't scatter into the cold. They paired up, and two men shared a sheepskin and fur sleeping bag, airtight, waterproof, and lined with layers of wool. Inside that cocoon, their combined body heat could raise the temperature by 15, even 20 degrees Fahrenheit. They laid their bedding on raised planks above the bilge water. The lowest sails were dropped to form makeshift tents, trapping warmth under the canopy. It wasn't luxury, it was survival engineering. They knew that one man alone would freeze, but two men sharing heat could live through the night. Every inch of the ship became part of a thermal system. Bodies, sails, and wood harmonized to capture what little warmth existed. It's easy to imagine these crews as rugged and reckless, but in truth they were methodical, disciplined, and astonishingly precise in how they used the human body as a tool against the cold. A ship without fire meant no cooking, so their diet changed too. They packed their voyages with what we'd now call pre-cooked logistics: dried cod and herring, hard bread baked to last for months, fat-based pastes rich in calories, essentially early energy bars made from animal fat, oats and berries. They could eat everything cold. Nothing required heat, nothing risked a flame. Even their liquids were engineered. They carried mead, sour ale, or diluted whey, fluids that wouldn't freeze easily and stayed safe to drink. But the true brilliance lay in their network. The Vikings established coastal waypoints, harbor camps from Norway to the Faroes, Iceland, and Greenland. Each stop had cooking fires and food stores waiting. Crews ate hot meals ashore, then sailed again into the fireless expanse. Their voyages were not desperate adventures, but logistical operations planned, supplied, and optimized for life without onboard heat. They didn't fight nature with technology. They moved with it. The deeper you study them, the more one truth stands out. The Vikings were not reckless barbarians but engineers. The rejection of onboard fire wasn't ignorance, it was strategy. They understood risk management centuries before the term existed. By eliminating flame, they eliminated the single greatest hazard to their ships. By mastering textiles, human warmth, and shore logistics, they turned their vessels into the safest long-range transports of their age. And that efficiency bought them reach, carrying them from Scandinavia to Greenland to Newfoundland and down to the markets of Constantinople. They traded furs, amber, and iron across oceans that swallowed lesser sailors whole. Their success was not just courage, but design thinking before design had a name. They didn't warm the environment. They optimized the organism. They didn't conquer nature. They adapted to it so precisely that nature itself became part of their system. That's why their legend endures. Close your eyes and picture them now. 20 men in an open boat under a frozen sky. The aurora glows green above. The sea is black glass. Their oars rise and fall in rhythm, breath steaming in the air. No light but the stars, no warmth but each other. They don't curse the cold, they embrace it. Because the cold is what keeps them sharp, alive, and united. They didn't cross oceans in spite of the cold. They crossed because of it. Because in that frozen silence, they discovered the one warmth no fire could give. The warmth of endurance, brotherhood, and human will forged in ice. And maybe that's why they reached farther than anyone thought possible. Maybe that's why their descendants still carry stories of ships that moved like living creatures across a killing sea. So the next time you picture a Viking, don't see a brute in furs. See an innovator, a strategist, a human being who turned the coldest place on earth into a highway, all without lighting a single spark. When we flip a thermostat today, think of those sailors of the North who chose not to heat their ships but to heat themselves. They refused comfort in the name of survival, and in doing so redefined what it meant to be human at sea. Because the Vikings did not fear the storm. They became it and sailed into the frozen horizon, their fire burning quietly within. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, join us at Prehistoric Shadows, where forgotten ingenuity and human endurance come alive again. Subscribe, and let's keep uncovering the hidden engineering triumphs of the ancient world.